Okay, can you see my screen? You see my screen?
Yeah,
Hi, you see my screen? Okay.
yeah, we can see.
Give me okay, 1 second here. Let me just get organized. It'll be a little shorter today because I started late, but hopefully we'll get that. Okay, so we talk about conditionals this week, right? So if then else, very standard. I'm sure many of you already familiar with that. So just want to point out a few things um, quickly here. Okay, so there is a way, in addition to using the if else block, you can also do binary conditioning using a syntax like this. So let's say I want to, I define an age 10, and then if I want to print out, children when the age is less than 18, for example, and otherwise print adults. Let's say I want to do that, right? Um, if you follow what was taught in Udemy, you can do like this. If age is less than 18, okay, you know what? Let me do something. Let me do one thing first. So in the Udemy course, instructor talk about using an HTML and embed a script file. That would be one way to allow you to type multiple lines of code easily, right? Because in here, in the console here is a little limited. So another way to do that, if you prefer, is to go to the sources. So I'm still in Chrome, and then I open the console here, go to the sources tab, and you can actually do new snippet. So that way, you can also type multiple lines of code, and you do not need to create an HTML,
Mm.
.js file, and then it's just a little easier. The only thing is that this doesn't seem to save. If you create a snippet here, I think it will be.
Lost. You.
But if you want to persist or save your work, you may want to copy paste that to an external file. But I still want to introduce this as another way to do the same thing. So let's go back to the example. Let age equals 10. And then if I use the traditional if else block, I can do like if age is less than 10, right? I can do, for example, console log children, child, else,
Mm.
right? I would print adult, right? So to run this, you do uh, on a Mac. I'm on a Mac. I do Command Enter. I think on Windows it would be Control Enter. Okay, let me do that again. So here, oh, okay, to clear what I've been typing before. Okay, so if I do Control Enter or Command Enter, it prints adults, right? And to test the other branch, to test the other code branch, let me set that to 20, and I will expect to see. Oh, sorry, I I made a mistake. I should do 18, 10.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, my bad. That's the problem when you code when you're in a rush. So H10, it prints child, right? And then if I do age 18, exactly 18, exactly 18, it will fail this condition. So it should print adult, right? So this is the way that was the traditional way um, of doing this. Nothing wrong. It's good. It's readable. It's clear. Um, However, there is another way to do that, and the other way may sometimes be better, and I'm going to explain that in a second. So let me comment it out. So the other way is just to do console log, right? And then in here, I can do age less than 18, question mark, child, and then colon, adult. So what this means is that I do the check here. If this evaluates to true, the whole thing here, the whole thing meaning this whole thing, will evaluate to the first thing in here. Otherwise, it will evaluate to the second one. So that means if this satisfies, I would print child. Otherwise, I'll print adult, right? So let me just clear the console and run again. So since the age is 18, it failed this condition, and that's why it go to this spot. Let me do a more easy to understand example. So 10, print child, right? But then if I do 20, it should be adult, right? So it achieved the same thing. So can someone tell me your preference? Do you like to do it this way or this way? Both way are technically correct. Nothing wrong. Can I hear some opinion? And can you also explain to me why you prefer one way or the other? Have some volunteer? No right or wrong, just preference. I just want to hear some opinion.
First way, yeah.
First one,
Yes.
you like this one?
Because I watch JavaScript in YouTube and I rarely see the second one, but I saw some on Facebook group.
Sorry, so your preference is the first one, right? The if else way.
Yes.
Is that what I hear? Okay, and the reason is it because it's more easier to read, easier to understand?
Yes.
Yeah, that's perfect. Hey Yuki, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, if you see, 10 years ago, I prefer the first one, but now I prefer the second one. It's not that is what happened, because it's more
Yeah.
common to see code in this using the second one. You get used to. You get used to your eyes. Okay, you know what is happening now. But in the beginning, it's quite sometimes people. This exam is easy to understand, but sometimes it's not easy to catch
Yes.
the where is the true, where is the false conditional. So, but as you use and see other people using a lot, you just change my mind and use this one now.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm too used to this way. It feels so natural to me.
Yeah.
However, if we are to compare this in a more uh, in a more objective way, um, so if we just compare them side by side, right? So this one is definitely more concise, right? Because I collapse 4 lines into 1 line. So it is more concise. Of course, you can argue that this is less readable. It's hard to understand, which is I would not disagree, right? Because for like Yuki mentioned, maybe if you are relatively newer in this area, maybe you're not so used to this way, and you may find that very hard to understand. So that is valid. However, there is a second reason, which is a more important reason, why I like to introduce this as a second approach. Um, so if I am to write a piece of code that would have multiple lines in the if statement and multiple lines in the else block, I would absolutely go with this approach because it would be very messy if I go this way, right? So it depends. And the other example I would like to point out here the reason why the second approach may sometimes be more useful is that imagine imagine I want to do it like this. If I want to first store the results in a result, then I may want to do like 18. So instead of just print it out right away, I want to store the result in a variable before I print that out. Right? So just bear with me. You very soon you will understand why I want to do it this way. Okay, so same concept except that I'm now storing the result in a variable named result, right? And then at the end, I print that out. So you should have the same logic, right? So if I put 10 here, it should print child. What? That's because I mixed up. I should first define age 10. So age, so two variables here, right? Age 10, and this is what I used to compare. Result is to store the result. So this time it should print child, yeah. So it's the same thing, right? The same idea as before, except that I store the results in a result variable. So if we look at this example, right, you will notice that in order to use the if-else way, I have to use let to declare the result variable, right? Because if I declare it as constant, I won't be able to assign that after because constant is immutable. It cannot be changed, right? So I'm forced to use let because of this. Are you with me? Any questions? Okay. So I cannot use constants here. I have to use let because I am going to change it here. I declare it here and I'm going to change it conditionally. So you may wonder what is the big deal, right? That I use let. So as a best practice, as you have more and more experience in JavaScript coding, you will very soon you will realize that, or you may appreciate that using const is a much more preferred way using let. That means you open a backdoor that you can change this variable whenever you want, right? So that could make the code error prone because you cannot, let's say I use let to declare this variable here, and then after 1,000 lines, I evaluate results. I use the results variable somewhere. I have no way to, well, it would be very hard for me to know for sure that the value stored in result is what I have above, because it could have been changed in those 1,000 lines in between, right? So it makes the code less reliable. You see what I mean? Like, there's no guarantee that result is not changed after the initial code in here. So that's the reason why, as far as possible, I would avoid using let. But how, right? How can I avoid? If I use constant, it won't allow me to do this. But I do need this conditional logic. So can someone tell me any idea how I can use constant, but still assign that conditionally? Any idea? Yeah, for the sake of fun, if I change that and run, I want to see what. Yeah, it doesn't allow, right? Oh, missing initializer. I have to assign that to something. Okay, so let me assign that to something. Yeah, so it doesn't allow, right? I must assign something when I use a constant to declare. Afterwards, if I declare a constant, and if I try to assign a value again, it won't allow. So I cannot use constant if I use the if-else approach. And that's the time you would consider using what I told you before. If age is 18, less than 18, child, otherwise adult. So this way, you have this one line. I declare the result as a constant, and I initialize that once with a value. And that initialization is conditional, right? So that's how I can use constant, but still having a conditional logic. Okay. Let me see. There. Maybe. Okay. Let me see what's going on here. Result has already been declared. That's weird. H is 10. Oh. Let me see.
It is because you are typing this source tab because you declare already in the memory, right? I don't know if
Maybe, yeah, that's
yeah,
I don't
maybe
yeah, let
yeah.
me yeah, maybe you're
Yeah,
right.
you
Okay. Then maybe one reason you won't use this. I haven't encountered this before, to be honest. No. Age has already been declared. Okay, this is fun. We can now debug that together. Constant age equals 10. What's wrong with it? Okay, let me just change that to maybe just deleting that script may not clear the memory. I think most likely is what you mentioned, Yuki. So if I change that to H2,
yeah.
result because result was used before. Oh, so
Yeah,
this is
no.
okay.
Okay,
Right.
yeah.
So
Yeah,
exactly what you yeah. So but you see the point, right? Like I can now use constants and still having a conditional logic. So this is a very useful and powerful pattern. And we actually do that in the real world a lot to avoid using the let way to declare a variable because of the reason I mentioned, right? So I hope that would convince you a little bit why it is important to also learn this way. I'm not sure if Udemy would teach this approach later on in the other lessons, but I do want to point that out because this is useful. Yeah, any questions or any comments? If not, let me just quit this and open a new one to make sure. Hopefully that will make it clean. Okay, over here. Okay, so that's the other way to do if else. Okay, so the second thing I want to talk about is we talk about like truthy and falsy values, right? Like undefined is falsy, right? Null is falsy. Empty string is also falsy, right? And so on. Let's go through one example to explore some of the common mistake that people make from time to time because of when we use truthy or falsy values. So let's say I want to make a program that would ask for an input of an integer, and then the program will tell you whether it is an even number or odd number, right? Or if you haven't entered anything. So three possibilities here. So first of all, I would use the prompt function to show a prompt. enter an integer. Oh, I forgot to put this in a script. Oh, it was still here. Okay. So first, let's test if this works, right? I just ask for an integer, and then it just echo that or print that out. 10, it print 10. Okay, so far so good. Okay, so now if I do something like this, if num, so let's say if I have entered a number, right? I would type, I would print, you enter an even or odd number, right? And here I need a conditional logic. And remember the templates literal we talked about last time that allow me to substitute something here, right? So here, if num modulo 2 is 0, then is it even or odd? Any idea? If the input number, even, right? Thank you. Yes, it's even, otherwise it's odd. Okay, so that means if, so I want to like ask for an input of a number, an integer, and then if the input is there, then I would check if the number modulo 2 is 0. If that is true, I would print you entered an even number, otherwise odd number. However, if I do not input anything, right, then I would do like this. Something like this, right? Okay, before I run the program, I can tell you there are 2 bugs in this code. Can someone tell me any, can you spot any problem with the code? There are 2 issues here. And you know you can always ask for hints, right? It will take a little bit of time. I can tell you the first line has 1 problem. And to make the problem more explicit, if I just run what we ran before, I input 20. Oh, actually,
Is it like you didn't do the data type?
yeah, that's excellent. Data type. So to make sure, so since in here, I am doing modulo operation. So I need to make sure this is number, right? But to be honest, let me just check one thing. Because I would expect if I do this, the the variable num would be a string, but it looks like it may not be. So let me check. If it is a number, then there is no issue here. And the way to check it is just to print type of num, right? And then we will know for sure. Oh, okay, it's indeed a string. So it is indeed an issue. So yes, data type. So if I put, even I put 20, right, as the input, it is a string. I cannot do modulo operation because it's not a number. So to do that, I mean, to make sure it's a number, we can use a function called parse int. So parse int would make sure it is a it will convert, basically it will convert a string to an integer or a number. But let me verify, let me confirm it is working. Put 50 this time. Yeah, it's a number, right? You see in here. So the first problem is that I have to first convert the input string into a number, into an integer. Well, in JavaScript it's number, but in this case it's an integer, so that I can do the modulo operation, right? So that's the first problem. And okay, so and there's one more problem, which is related to what related to truthy or falsy concept. See if you can spot the other error. I'll give a bit more time because this one could be tricky. So pay special attention to line 3. If you get some idea, just say it. Even if you're not 100% sure, it doesn't matter. We can just discuss. So after the first line here, we guaranteed that the input value has been converted into a number, right?
Also, is it related to like if the user just enter without input any data?
So can you say that again?
Is it related to, like, for example, user just enter in the prompt and without entering any data? Like,
okay, let's try. So if I do not enter anything and I press OK, it says missing input, which is good. So no issue. So no problem here. But the direction that you're heading is correct. It is something to do with what the user input.
oh, is it 0? I'm not sure.
0. So what happens if I input 0? If I input 0, it's converted to the number 0 here, right? Then what happens?
Zero. So it's a false. I'm not sure.
So if you recall what was mentioned in the Udemy course when we talk about truthy, falsy values, right?
Yes.
0 is falsy, and
Yes,
that is
yes.
problematic. That means if I input 0, it will be converted to the number 0. However, since the number 0 is falsy, this will fail. So it will say missing input, even though I input something. So let's try that out. If I type 0, it says missing input. So this is a bug, right?
Yeah.
And this is tricky. And it happens in real world. And sometimes it can take a long time to debug this kind of issue. So that's why I want to point that out. So truthy and falsy could be tricky. So whenever you deal with this kind of check, just think about the possible value. If there are anything that could make it falsy, then it may not work as intended. Right? Okay, so now we had caught the bug. How do we fix it?
because this code quite good, because if you enter string, they will show, yeah.
Yes, that is another problem
Yeah.
I didn't talk about. Thanks, Yuki. If I type ABC, to be honest, I don't know what is going to happen. But let's see. Let's see. Oh, missing input.
Yeah,
Oh,
because it try because you try to
convert it to 0.
no, then
Maybe
you
it's
convert to not a number. So
I
not a number is falsy. I think is that. I think what happened. I think
converted
parse int
them.
return to not a number is not a number.
Ah, yeah.
If they
possible.
cannot parse to int, I think he turned not a number.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I do not know what is happening, but let's see. So if we check the type of num, right? Let's find out. And I type ABC here. Oh, it's a number. Oh, but it could be the not a number thing, right? So let's see if it is not a number thing. Yeah, you're right. You're right, Yuki. If I type ABC, it returns not a number. So, and not a number is falsy. So that's why it says missing input. Okay, so that is another bug, right? But let's forget about this one. But the reason I want to, for this example is to demonstrate the falsy truthy kind of thing. So if we go back to, so let's say we have some check to make sure the input value is always a number. Then there is still this 0 issue here, right? So one way to fix the problem is that I check the type of number, type of num. So if the type of num is a number, only if that is true, then I would do this calculation, right? So that way, even if this is a 0, the type of the type of the number 0 is still a number. Then it should still work. Let's test that out. Oh, let's try something more simple. So 10 even, right? 3. Oh, so far so good. Okay, now let's do the ultimate test. 0 even, right? I look it up. To be honest, I don't remember if 0 is even or odd or not, neither even or odd. But I looked that up online. I think 0 is an even number, so I think we are good. But the main point here is that this check here, this is another typical way to make your code more robust, right? Sometimes you do not rely just on the variable. So whenever the variable could hold a value that is falsy, then you may need to think about whether or not you just want to do if num or check the type explicitly, right? So something to keep in mind with practice. Like if you do more and more, you will see this happening from time to time, and you will know. It becomes like common sense to you if you do it.
Teacher, can you try ABC with this code?
So what do you think? If I type ABC, it would be a NaN, right? And NaN is NaN a number? I think so, right?
Yeah, it's a number. NaN is a number. It's a number.
Okay, so then it will be, so it will satisfy. And then I don't know what's going to happen. NaN modular 2, I don't know. So let's try that out. Odd number. I don't know why. I don't know why. It's interesting. But at least we know that it has gone through this line, right? Which is as expected because NaN is a number type, right? So if you want to make it really more robust, we can actually do something like this. And not is NaN, not, right? Then if it is an NaN, it will say missing input. Invalid input. Right? So this would be another way to fix it. So now you see that this is more robust, much more robust than before. Yes, Ponra, you have a question?
Yes. Still not sure like when's the usage of true and false, when are we using it in which scenario when it comes to production or real life coding,
I'm sorry, is your audio is breaking up. I'm not so sure. Do you mind repeating your question?
I want to know like when is the usage of using falsy and true and falsy? Yes.
What is the usage, right?
Yeah, when do we use it, especially like when it comes to like real life coding, like in which scenario?
So if so let's say, so it would make it yeah, I'm trying to think about an example here. So let's say if we change this a little bit, enter a string, right? And I store that into the string constant here, and then I can do like this, right? You just print that out, echo that, echo the input. Otherwise, missing input. So, okay. So in this case, it's a little simpler because there is no problem with the zero number thing. So if there is, so for string, the only time it will be falsy is an empty string or undefined, right? So it becomes quite convenient because in this case, if I don't input anything, or if I input an empty string, then this is falsy. And whenever it's falsy, I say missing input. So it is actually pretty good, right? So very often we would use this kind of condition. But without the truthy, falsy kind of concept, you would have to do, okay, let's first test and see if this is working. ABC, okay, it just echoed that, no problem. And then if I don't input anything, missing input, right? So this is good. So without the truthy and falsy concept, you would need to do like something like this. Type of string and string dot length greater than 0. This also works, right? Because I explicitly check the input is a string and it is not an empty string. So this should also work. Right? A, B, C, D, if I don't input anything, it says missing input. But you can see that it becomes more convoluted, right? It seems to be more complicated than it needs to be, right? So in this case, if I'm writing this code, I would not do it like this. I would just say this. So this is one example of how we would make use of truthy, falsy to make your code easier to read, simpler, and so on. But just whenever you do this kind of thing, just think about whether when the variable can be a falsy value, and would that impact your code, right? like in the case of the number example, it would be a problem. So I hope that answer your question, Ponya.
Yes, yes, it does. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, teacher. Yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's that. And okay, let's look at one more example. Similar but different example. So we covered number, we covered Boolean. No, not Boolean, number and string. Let's do Boolean. Okay, so let's say I do like smart. Okay. And then I would expect yes or no, right? So so then I would do a check here. If the answer is yes, right? Let's define a variable is smart. Okay. So if the answer, if I input yes, then I will set this to yeah, to true, right? This is a Boolean because I assign true to it. Otherwise, if else if, right? Because I have to check if the input is no, then smart would be false, right? So you will notice that it is possible that if I input something other than yes or no, then the is smart variable will be undefined, right? Because it's declared here, but it's never assigned. So if I then do like this, okay. Otherwise, okay. So like this. Do you see a problem here? The problem is mainly around the fact that the smart can be undefined. Right? So that means if I'm to run this, if I type yes, it should work, right? It should work. If I type no, it should also work because of this, right? But if I now input something other than yes or no, if you see, then what's going to happen is that is smart would be undefined. Undefined is falsy, right? So it will go here. So that doesn't work as intended, right? So that is another example of truthy and falsy handling when we do this kind of if conditioning, right? Because is smart could be true, could be false, could be undefined, but we cannot differentiate between undefined and false because they're both treated as falsy and they would both go to this path. So that is the problem, right? So that is another example of when you would do like this. Right? If it is Boolean, then I can safely say, I can safely check this. Right? And if it is not Boolean, that means it is not a valid input, right? Because it means it is not assigned. So that means I haven't, my input is not, neither yes or no. In this case, I would print invalid input, right? So let's try that out. If I type yes, it works. If I type no, it also works. Now, if I type yes with uppercase, so that means this will fail, right? This will fail. And this will also fail. So smart will be undefined. So we will say an invalid input, right? So this is the kind of thing that, the kind of details that I would like you to keep in mind, because in real world, it can happen to less experienced developers. But over time, you will know this kind of thing. You will know when to use type of, when to just rely on the truthy or falsy values. So far, so good. Any questions? Any comments? Yeah, so this is similar to the number example, right? Except that for numbers, 0 is falsy. For Boolean, undefined and Boolean. Undefined and the Boolean false are both falsy. So those are the thing that keep in mind. Okay, so last thing I want to talk about. Let's see. Okay, so let's do something else. Okay, let's say I do something like this. 1 second. I ask for an input. And a positive, even number. Okay. and then I have to make sure I parse int. Okay. Positive even number. And then let's say I want to make a variable is positive. And then I can check if the number is greater than 0 is positive, right? And then I do another variable is even. Num modulo 2. Right? So if I do that, I can now say if the number is not positive and is even. So if this is not true, so because if it is positive and even, sorry, if it is not positive or not even, then I would print invalid input. Otherwise, I use a template literal to echo the inputs. I'm not sure if I can do that with an alert, but let's try that out. Okay. Something like this, right? So that means if I input a positive and even number, then it will say it will echo the value. But this is the condition, right? So here I use the negation or the not operator to check to negate or to turn around this value, right? And then let me first test that out. Selected token. Oh, okay, because I am missing a bracket here. Right. So if I put 6, it's valid. But if I put 3, 3 is not even. So it should say invalid input. Yeah. Okay, so the reason why I want to go through this example is that I want to tell you about this line. So there are 2 ways to handle this. Whenever you see like something like this, xxx and yy, right? Whenever you see this, you can change that to this is equivalent to not x or not y. So they are equivalent. It is kind of like the algebra we learn in school, right? When you do, when you have like 2 and then a plus b.
It's
right?
grade 10. It's
Grade
grade
10?
10 here. Grade 10, they learn about that.
Oh,
Boolean,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it's been a long time, so I don't remember when I learned it. Right? Like algebra, right? Similar. When I have a bracket here, I can write it this way, or I can write it this way. And it is useful to know this because sometimes you would prefer this way, and sometimes you would prefer the other way. Depends on situation, right? It's a matter of preference as well, but it also depends on the situation. So in this case, in this example, that means I can write I can change this to if not positive or not even, right? Then I would say invalid input. So it should work the same way as before, except that there is a bug here because I have an extra bracket. Okay. All right. So let's try that. Okay, if I make a -2, invalid, right? If I make 99, it's not even, invalid. If I say, give a really big even number, right? So it works the same way, same identical logic, but you can write this identical logic in different ways. So this is just to demonstrate this concept here. But to be honest, if I'm to write this code, I would not do it this way because it is hard to, it is more complicated than it needs to be, right? So can someone suggest how we can make this better, more readable, simpler, but still achieve the same purpose?
Use the ternary conditional.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Use the ternary condition. Yeah, conditional.
Oh, you use the question mark thing?
Yes, question mark.
Right. Yes, that would work. That would work. Yeah, thank you. That definitely that is something you can do, right? Like just alert and then you do the conditional like we did before. Yeah, that's perfect. And other Another possible way to, if I want to keep this if else for whatever reason, right? Maybe I have 100 lines of code in here or 100 lines of code in here. I want to use the if else. Then there is still one thing I can do. So if I switch this back to what I have before, oops. Let me first switch that back. Right. So usually, I would avoid using the negation operator if I can, because this is counterintuitive, right? So instead of doing this, I can simply do if it is positive and if it is even, then I switch this around. And I echo the number, right? Otherwise, invalid. So you should already notice that this is more intuitive, more straightforward, easier to understand, and achieve the same purpose, right? And of course, you can then turn this into the one-line thing, as you mentioned, alert, and then do the question mark syntax if you want to. But yeah, this is another thing you can keep in mind. Try to avoid like using a negative or the negation operator in the if clause, because that will make the code a little harder to understand, and also that will get you into a situation you have to do the algebra, right? So yeah, so I would say this would be a better way to write this code. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all I want to go through. Just want to share a few examples. If I mean, to learn the if else is very easy for you guys. But those are the things like truthy, falsy. It is one tricky area when you do this kind of thing. Best practices, try not to use the negation if possible. And also the question mark notation or the question mark approach can help you use constants, avoid using the let. So those are a few things that I want to bring up today just to share with you. I hope you find that useful. Anything else? I know we started late today. I'm sorry about that. But is there any other questions, any concern, or anything we want to bring up?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Can you please explain the difference between loose inequality and strict inequality? I'm quite not sure
Oh, okay.
about that. Yes.
Sure. Yes. Let's go through that. So are you talking about the 2 equal sign versus 3 equal sign?
Yes. But the inequality with the exclamation. Yeah. With the exclamation. Wait. Let me type in the chat.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, because I think the audio is not very smooth. So I.
Yes. Can you see it?
Okay, let me just move it here so that we can all see the question. So, okay, I see. So this one, right?
Yes.
Right. So this thing is okay. So let me just move it back. So last time we talked about this versus this, right? So this correspond to this thing. So the exclamation mark and equal sign is inequality check, right? But it is a loose one. It ignores the type. But this one is the strict inequality check. So basically, it functions the same way, exact same way as this one, because it takes the type into consideration, except that it is the opposite, right? And this one is just the negation of, this one is just the negation of the loose equality check. Does that answer the question? So
Can you give me
even
like
though
an example? Yeah, for the inequality one.
sorry, does that answer the question?
Can you give me an example for the
Oh,
inequality?
example. Okay. Let me think. Let's try. So if I have a number 1, if I so first of all, let's try the equality one first. It's easier. So this, we know that it will evaluate to false because it takes the type into consideration. So it will be false, even though they are both 1, right? But this is a number 1, this is a string 1. If I do this, it will just negate the answer, right? However, if I do the loose one, it will say they are not different, they are the same. So the fact that it shows false means it doesn't think the two are different. It thinks the two things here are the same. Why? Because it doesn't take the type into consideration, right? But if I do this strict inequality check, it will tell you number 1 is indeed not equal to the string 1 because it takes the type into consideration, right? So that is the difference.
Oh, I get it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Any more questions? All right. So if not, we can close it here, and I will see you again next week.
Thank you, Homan.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah,
have a good day,
sometimes
Yeah.
sometimes it's very 2-3 lines takes 1 hour to understand.
Yeah. So
or to
yeah.
to find the error, what is not
Yeah.
the condition that is not working sometimes.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, because when I was preparing this for this week, I was going through the lesson, and I was like, what else can I talk about, right? Because that is quite straightforward.
Yeah.
It looks like it has already covered everything. It's pretty complete. And then I started to think about, like, from my experience, what kind of bugs or what kind of issues I have seen, right, in this kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then it was pretty fun. Yeah, that's why I came up
Yeah.
with those examples, because those are the actual bug you may see in real life.
And you're right, when we use the exclamation mark, became harder to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes you
Yeah.
can have to
Yeah,
take the piece of paper and see what's happening.
Yeah, it's like double negative, right? In
Yeah,
English,
no,
right? Yeah. So
thank you
it's
for
fun.
bringing up. Yeah, bringing up. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Roman.
Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that, and
Yeah.
see you again next week. All right. Okay. Take care. Bye for now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.